In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at one of my favorite techniques for improving the clouds and the skies in your photos. So any type of an outdoor photo, whether it's a portrait, a place, it doesn't matter. Anything with the sky in it, I think this technique could be helpful. So what we're going to do, we're going to jump over into Photoshop. And by the way, my name is Matt Kloskowski, if we haven't met in person or online before. And what we're going to do here is I use this technique whenever I have a gap in the sky and I've got clouds somewhere, but I want to fill in a gap. So you can see we've kind of lost some of the clouds over here on the left-hand side. So this one's actually really easy to work with. What we're going to do in Photoshop is go grab the lasso tool. And by the way, this will work back probably I guarantee you this will work back to an older version of Photoshop than you even have on your computer. But we're going to take the lasso tool and we're just going to lasso around the bulk of the area of the sky that you want. You don't have to be very particular about it. It can just be a free-formed lasso around a certain part of to me, the best part of the sky. Then we're going to head up there to the select menu. We're going to go down to modify and we're going to choose feather. And we're going to feather this by about 50 pixels. Okay, so 50 pixels. When you click OK, you're not even really going to see any change inside of the selection here. But you will see it in just a moment because we're going to press Command J on the Mac or Control J on the PC. And when you do that, you'll see it takes what we had selected and pops it up onto its own layer. If I hide the background, you can actually see we have a very soft feathered selection now around what we had selected before. So from here, the process is pretty simple. It's going to work different on every photo out there, and you definitely need the right photo for something like this. Don't think you can use it anything, especially if the sun is in the photo, this becomes a lot harder to do. So keep that in mind. But if the sun isn't in the photo, I think you'll find it a lot easier. We're going to head up here to the edit menu, go down there to free transform. Probably for the rest of the video, I'm just going to say the keyboard shortcut, which is Command or Control T. I'm going to go in here to free transform. And so Photoshop made a change last year where if you want to scale in a proportional way, you don't have to do anything. If you want to do where it's not proportional, then you have to hold down the Shift key. So what I'll do here is hold down the Shift key because I don't really want this to be proportional. And what I want to do is just stretch that across the photo. And I can even hold down Shift and maybe even stretch it up here toward the top a little bit. And when you're done, hit that little checkbox or press enter or return. And you can see that we've now filled the sky with a lot more interest. We've taken away some of those areas that had some gaps in it. So if you see the before and the after. And of course, if you had a reflection, it would be a lot harder to do as well. But we only really have color reflected here, so we're able to pull it off a lot easier. Now, the last thing that you'll see here is sometimes you'll see a little bit of a patch or a gradient or something that lets you know, like, something was done here. This doesn't look right. So what I usually do is, and you can do this the easy, fast way or the slightly longer and slightly more difficult way. It just depends on your familiarity with Photoshop. If you're familiar with Photoshop, feel free to use a layer mask to do this, and it will do it in a non-destructive way, but I'm going to go ahead and use the eraser tool just to keep it simple here. So press E for the eraser. I usually drop the opacity down to about 30-40% or so. Make sure you're using a large feathered brush, which means the hardness should be set to 0. Okay. And then I'm going to hit the right bracket key to make it even bigger. And I'm just going to kind of chip away at that edge there so it blends in a little bit better. Just like that. All right. If we take the little eyeball icon, let's click on it. That'll turn it off, and then that'll turn it back on. Again, off, on. Subtle little things that I think make a big difference in your photos here. All right, I've got a couple other examples here, but before we look at those examples, one quick thing to pay the bills because we need a word from our sponsor, which is always me. First things first is if you like these videos, folks, please subscribe wherever you're watching this, and that'll help you out. Make sure you don't miss any. It also helps me out. But also, if you would be so kind to stop by the website, mattkay.com photoshop.com/preset-system. I've got a brand new, recently introduced photography preset system for Lightroom and also Photoshop Camera Raw. I believe they're very modern presets. They were created for the latest versions to take advantage of some of the technology that we have there. And then one of the things I think is pretty cool about it is I included a lot of training in this so that you're not getting 1,000 presets. You're actually only getting like 70 or 80 of them. But the training shows you how to use them and how to make them your own so that you're not just clicking on, randomly clicking on hundreds of presets, but you've got training to show you what I was thinking when I made them, how these presets tick and how you can make them work inside of your own workflow. So again, the link is in the description. You can swing by and see that the bundle is on sale right now. Okay. All right, let's go jump back over here to Photoshop. Let's take a look at another photo just to show you the technique is the same exact thing. We'll take a look at this sky here. Again, I think this is really some of the best parts of the sky. So, and we're going to look at a little bit more difficult example in just a minute. But just to hit this one home, let's go to Select, Modify, Feather, 50 pixels, click OK, press Command or Control J, pops it up onto its own layer, press Command or Control T, and hold down the Shift key, and now you can stretch this out. And in this photo, I don't even think I need to do the eraser tool. I think it works just fine in this photo. I think everything blended together really well. I might need to come down here and use the eraser tool just on those trees down there because I did stretch those out as well, but they're easy enough to get rid of. Okay, I've got one more sky example, but just as a little side note, I figured I would show you that you can do this. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sky. So I can go take a picture of my buddy here. In fact, let's make it a little bit wider. It gives us a little bit less work to do later on. Make a quick lasso selection. Go up here to Select, Modify, Feather, 50 pixels, Command or Control J, Command or Control T, and just grab that handle, and now we can move that up as well. Okay. You might need to go in here and do a little bit of creative, either erasing work. It could just be the eraser where you come up here, or you might even have to go in there and do a little bit of creative cloning work, but it shouldn't take long to kind of dive into those little sections and just fix any of those little rocks that we have there. Again, sometimes it's the eraser, sometimes I can hit the clone stamp tool, and it's easy enough to just sample from part of the rock and then just go over here and paint it in. Again, maybe use a higher opacity brush than I just did there, but that's a good, easy way to go in there and fix some of those little things that might happen. So you might have to get a little creative depending on the photo, but I think you'll see the technique can translate to a lot of different things here. All right, so let's take a look at one more example. And in this one, you're going to see that we have to, just using the eraser tool doesn't quite cut it. There's such a difference in the sky. So you can see it's dark here, loses the color, and then it gets real bright here and kind of gains color. So I'm going to make a lasso selection of that part of the sky. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Again, the bigger you make it, the more outside the edges, the more leeway you give yourself. Later on, remember, you can always erase or mask it away. And then we'll go to Select, Modify, Feather, 50 pixels, Command or Control J, Command or Control T, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key and I'm going to stretch this one out across this way. Maybe I'll even stretch it, make it a little bit bigger, like so. All right, something along those lines. So at this point, I could go grab my eraser tool. Again, just use a large, soft brush, and I could start to erase it away. The problem is to me, the transition gets too aggressive between the dark and the bright that's in here. So we can use a tool inside of Photoshop that will help us blend this into its background while keeping the color, while keeping the good stuff. So what we do here is we double click on that layer. It's going to open up our layer style dialog box. All right. From here, we're going to go down to Blend If. All right. Now, Blend If usually works. I generally use it inside the gray area, and I can blend. I can hold down my Option or Alt key and blend. If it's bright, I can hold down my Option or Alt key, and what we're essentially doing is blending. We're splitting these sliders, which gives it a smoother blend. And I can blend if it's dark, which starts to get rid of the dark stuff. My problem here is not necessarily light or dark. it's this blue. It's this bright blue that's, to me, too aggressively mixing in with the darker blue over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to change blend diff from gray to blue. All right. Now I'm going to hold down my Option or Alt key, and I'm going to split those sliders, and I'm going to start to blend that away. Take a look at what it does here. All right. I'm going to blend it a little bit further, probably right about there. Take a look right inside this area, and you'll see what it's done is it's kept a lot of the color. It does get rid of a little bit of it, and it has to because there's blue up there, but it's kept a lot of the color in the sky, which is what I was after, but it's blended away some of that bright blue so that it mixes in a little bit more softly. It just doesn't go straight to the dark. Again, it's a blend. That's why we're splitting these sliders, and it's a smooth blend between. So it's blending between those two to allow us to get a less aggressive change between what was bright and what was dark over here on the left-hand side. So it's a great little trick. I'm using blue because these colors were blue. Again, depending on your sky color, if it's more towards sunset or sunrise, maybe sometimes reds may work. It just depends. You have to look at the color that you want to blend away. In this case, I wanted to blend blue away. So you'd have to look at that color and adjust that color through your blend diff there. And as you look at the before and after, it's those little things that help us blend two layers together to give us a more realistic approach as we're trying to take one object that we've put into somewhere else and actually get it to look like it fits there and blends in with its background.